Welcome to English Lab.
Have you ever started a brand new year, perhaps just like this one, with a huge, exciting list of resolutions, only to completely give up by the middle of February? Today, we discover exactly how to make 2026 your best year ever.
That happens to so many people every single year, unfortunately. But do not worry, we are here to help you change that pattern. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the English Lab podcast.
I am Emily, and I am so incredibly excited to be here with you today to talk about something very important. We want to help you practice real English while discussing positive lifestyle choices and goals for the future.
And I am Dylan. We are thrilled to have you listening to our show today. Remember, we speak in simple English, perfect for B1 and B2 learners. If we use a difficult word, we will always explain it clearly with simple examples.
Exactly. So, let us talk about the upcoming year, 2026. Many people feel a lot of pressure to change their entire personality on January 1st. It often leaves them feeling completely overwhelmed by all the sudden expectations.
That is true. Let us stop and explain that excellent word. Overwhelmed. Overwhelmed means having too much to deal with, feeling like you are carrying a huge, heavy backpack of stress that you cannot easily put down.
Here is one practical example. Imagine you have 3 difficult university exams in one single week. Plus, you have to work late at your job every single evening. You would feel totally overwhelmed by all those heavy responsibilities.
That is a perfect example. Here is a second long example. Imagine you are cooking a massive dinner for 20 important guests, and suddenly your kitchen oven breaks down and your dog eats the dessert. You would definitely feel overwhelmed.
Just thinking about that makes me nervous. To avoid feeling like that in 2026, we need to completely change how we approach our new goals. We cannot try to fix absolutely everything about our lives in just one single week.
I completely agree. I remember back in 2023, I wanted to change my entire life immediately. I promised myself I would wake up at 5 in the morning, run 10 kilometers daily, and read a whole educational book every night.
Oh wow, that sounds completely exhausting. Did you actually manage to do all of those incredibly difficult things? I feel completely tired just thinking about running 10 kilometers every single morning, especially during the freezing, dark winter months.
Of course not. I did it for exactly 3 days. On the 4th day, it was raining heavily, my legs hurt terribly, and my loud alarm clock felt like a personal enemy. I gave up completely and felt like a massive failure.
That feeling of failure is truly awful. I had a very similar negative experience a few years ago. I decided I wanted to learn how to play the acoustic guitar, cook complicated French meals, and start a small business all at once.
Let me try to guess exactly what happened next. You bought a really expensive new guitar, purchased a dozen heavy French cookbooks, and then realized you had absolutely zero free time to actually do any of those ambitious things.
You are completely right. The guitar just sat in the corner of my bedroom, quietly collecting dust for many months. Every time I looked at it, I felt terribly guilty. It became a negative symbol instead of a fun new hobby.
This is exactly why I strongly believe that having strict daily discipline is far more important than having motivation. Motivation is just a temporary feeling, and feelings constantly change, but discipline is a solid, reliable habit you build over time.
I actually disagree with you on that specific point. I think motivation is the vital spark that starts the entire engine. Without that strong initial desire, why would you even try to build the hard discipline in the first place?
Yes, the spark is definitely nice, but sparks disappear very quickly in the wind. Discipline is the heavy, solid wood that keeps the warm fire burning all night long. If you only act when you feel motivated, you will never reach your big 2026 goals.
But if your daily discipline feels like a terrible punishment, you will eventually hate the entire process. Motivation comes from deeply loving your personal vision for the future. You need to vividly imagine your success to stay consistently happy while working hard.
We can agree that both are necessary. Let's talk about the biggest enemy of our 2026 goals: procrastination. Procrastination means unnecessarily delaying or postponing important tasks you should be doing right now, usually because they are quite boring or emotionally hard.
Yes, procrastination is a terrible habit. For example, you know you absolutely must pay your expensive electricity bill today, but instead you spend 3 entire hours watching silly, funny cat videos on your mobile phone. That is a classic example of procrastination.
Here is another detailed example. Imagine you have a massive, important university project due on Friday. Instead of starting on Monday, you clean your entire apartment, organize all your socks by color, and wait until Thursday midnight to finally start writing.
I am definitely guilty of organizing my messy socks just to avoid doing any real difficult work. So, how do we stop procrastinating and start building a truly positive lifestyle for the upcoming year? It requires a massive mental shift.
A mental shift or a fundamental change in how your brain thinks is absolutely crucial. For me, creating a very detailed, strict morning routine completely changed my life. How you start your early morning defines how the rest of your day goes.
I really love pleasant morning routines, but I genuinely think peaceful evening routines are actually far more important. If you do not sleep well and prepare your clothes the night before, your morning will be chaotic no matter how early you wake up.
We are debating once again, but maybe you are actually right about this. Preparing everything the night before saves so much precious mental energy. If my clean gym clothes are already next to my bed, I do not have to think at all.
Exactly. Let us carefully explain the difficult word chaotic, since I just used it. Chaotic means completely confused, totally disorganized, and without any logical order. It is the exact opposite of calm and peaceful. We want to avoid chaotic mornings in 2026.
That is a very useful English word to know. A great example of a chaotic situation is a large supermarket on the crazy day right before a big winter holiday. People are running everywhere, products are falling off shelves, and the lines are incredibly long.
That is a very good example. Another perfect example of something chaotic is trying to work quietly on your laptop while 3 little children are screaming loudly, playing heavy metal music, and throwing hard plastic toys all over the living room.
It is totally impossible to focus in a situation like that. Speaking of focusing on goals, we want to know about our listeners' plans. And you? What is your absolute biggest, most important goal for 2026? Tell us in the comments.
Yes, please share your amazing goals with us below. Reading your comments always gives us so much wonderful inspiration. So, to really achieve those big dreams, we need to break them down into much smaller, manageable steps called milestones.
A milestone is a fantastic word. A milestone is a very important event or a significant step in a long, difficult process. It is just like a helpful sign on the side of the road, clearly showing your forward progress.
Let me give you a very clear example. If your ultimate goal is to learn English fluently by December, a great milestone would be having your very first 10-minute conversation with a native speaker in April without feeling nervous at all.
Another highly practical example of a milestone could be saving enough money to buy a reliable new car. Opening the special savings bank account is the very first step, but actually, saving your first $1,000 is a major, exciting milestone.
I absolutely love the concept of milestones because they make massive goals feel so much less frightening. But honestly, I really struggle with tracking them. I always buy those incredibly beautiful, expensive paper planners with thick pages every single January.
Let me guess exactly what happens to those beautiful paper planners. You write very neatly for exactly 2 entire weeks in January, using different colored pens, and then you completely forget about the planner until September arrives, feeling terribly guilty.
Yes, you are perfectly right. Unfortunately, that is exactly why I strongly prefer using digital applications on my smartphone nowadays. My phone sends me loud digital reminders every single morning, forcing me to stay strictly consistent with my important goals.
Oh, I strongly disagree with using smartphones for important life goals. Digital applications are completely full of terrible distractions. You open your phone to check your daily reading habit, and suddenly, you are looking at funny dancing dogs for hours.
We are definitely having another funny debate today. But listen, let us quickly explain the fantastic word consistent, which I just used. Consistent means always doing something the exact same way over a long period of time without stopping.
That is a truly excellent word for our B1 and B2 learners today. A great example of being consistent is waking up at 7 o'clock every single morning, drinking exactly 1 large glass of water, and doing 10 minutes of gentle stretching.
Here is a second, highly detailed example of being consistent. Imagine you are studying hard for a difficult university mathematics exam. You consistently study for exactly 2 solid hours every single evening after dinner instead of waiting until the final night.
That is precisely how you actually pass difficult university exams. But let us be completely honest about the upcoming year, 2026. Even if you are perfectly consistent and highly motivated, you will inevitably experience a very frustrating setback at some point.
That is a very realistic truth. A setback is another wonderful vocabulary word for our listeners. A setback is an unexpected problem that completely stops your forward progress and makes things much harder, delaying your original plans by several weeks.
Let me provide a clear, practical example of a frustrating setback. Imagine you have been training incredibly hard for a long marathon in 2026, but suddenly you severely twist your right ankle while walking down the stairs in your apartment building.
Oh, that would be incredibly painful and discouraging. Here is another long example of a typical setback. You spend 3 entire months saving your money for a relaxing summer vacation, but then your old car suddenly needs a very expensive mechanical repair.
Those unexpected problems can totally destroy your motivation if you are not mentally prepared for them in advance. This is exactly why a truly positive lifestyle is not about being happy all the time, but about developing strong mental resilience.
I completely agree with you on the vital importance of mental resilience. Last year, I experienced a huge setback when I completely failed a major project at my office. I felt deeply embarrassed and wanted to quit my comfortable job immediately.
That sounds like a remarkably difficult situation to handle gracefully. How did you manage to overcome those strong negative feelings and actually find the courage to go back into the busy office the very next morning to face your demanding boss?
It was certainly not easy at all. I called my grandmother, who always gives the best advice. She told me that failing does not make you a failure, it just makes you a normal human being who is actively learning.
Your grandmother sounds like an incredibly wise and wonderful woman. We should definitely invite her onto our English podcast someday to talk about her amazing life experiences. That beautiful perspective completely changes how we look at our big mistakes.
She would absolutely love to be a special guest on our show. Anyway, changing your perspective is the true secret to making 2026 fantastic. Instead of looking at your mistakes as terrible disasters, you must view them as valuable educational lessons.
I really love that positive attitude. It reminds me of a very funny mistake I made when I first started learning how to bake fresh bread. I accidentally used salt instead of sugar and baked the most disgusting cake ever created.
Oh no, that sounds absolutely hilarious and terrible. Please tell me that you did not actually serve that extremely salty, disgusting cake to any of your hungry friends or family members during a fancy weekend dinner party at your beautiful house?
Unfortunately, I proudly served it to my new boyfriend's parents the very first time I ever met them. They were far too polite to say anything negative, so they just smiled nervously while drinking massive amounts of cold water.
I am literally laughing out loud right now. That is a truly legendary mistake. But I am sure that deeply embarrassing experience taught you to always double-check your cooking ingredients very carefully before putting anything inside the hot kitchen oven.
Exactly. I never, ever mixed up the salt and the sugar ever again after that highly stressful evening. This proves that even our most embarrassing mistakes actually help us improve our daily habits if we maintain a good sense of humor.
Having a good sense of humor about yourself is totally essential for a positive lifestyle in 2026. If you take yourself too seriously all the time, you will just become incredibly stressed and angry whenever tiny little things go wrong.
So, to summarize our key points for creating the best year ever, we need to build strong discipline instead of relying on temporary motivation, set very clear, manageable milestones, and most importantly, expect frustrating setbacks along our long, winding journey.
I would also add one more very important thing to that excellent list. We must surround ourselves with highly supportive, positive people who genuinely want to see us succeed, rather than negative people who constantly complain about their own miserable lives.
That is a brilliant point to bring up. Positive people give you so much incredible energy. When I spend time with friends who are actively working on their own ambitious 2026 goals, I naturally feel much more motivated to work hard.
Exactly. Energy is highly contagious. If you sit in a dark room with 3 people who complain about the weather, the economy, and their terrible jobs, you will quickly start complaining about those exact same boring things within 10 minutes.
But if you sit in a bright room with 3 people who are excitedly talking about learning new languages, starting exciting new businesses, and reading fascinating books, you will immediately want to improve your own life and reach your highest potential.
That word, contagious, is absolutely perfect for this exact situation. Positive energy spreads so incredibly fast. This brings us directly to the very important concept of finding a reliable accountability partner for the upcoming year to ensure our total success.
I absolutely love talking about accountability, but before we go any further, let us clearly explain that difficult English word. Accountability means taking full responsibility for your own actions and having someone else gently check on your daily progress constantly.
Here is a highly detailed, practical example. Imagine you promise to go running every Wednesday morning. If you have an accountability partner, they will personally call your phone at 6 o'clock to strictly ensure you are actually wearing your shoes.
That is a great example. Here is a second, very clear example of accountability. You tell your coworker you will finish a boring financial report by Friday. Because you promise them directly, you feel a strong obligation to complete it perfectly.
Having that external pressure can be incredibly helpful when your internal motivation completely disappears into thin air. For my 2026 goals, I actually asked my older sister to be my personal accountability partner for my brand new healthy eating habits.
That sounds like a truly brilliant idea. But I strongly believe that instead of just telling one single person, you should publicly announce your massive goals on your social media accounts. That creates the ultimate level of intense daily accountability.
Oh, I completely and utterly disagree with you on that specific point. Announcing your private goals to the entire internet creates way too much toxic pressure. If you fail, suddenly hundreds of random strangers know about your deeply embarrassing mistakes.
But that intense fear of public embarrassment is exactly what violently pushes you forward when you feel extremely lazy on a cold morning. If I tell 500 online followers I am writing a book, I simply cannot quit easily.
I tried exactly that stressful strategy back in 2022. I proudly posted a beautiful picture on Instagram announcing I would learn conversational Japanese in exactly 6 months. The immense pressure made me so incredibly anxious that I completely stopped studying.
Really? That is completely fascinating to me. When I publicly announced I was training for a difficult bicycle race in the steep mountains, the encouraging comments from my online friends actually gave me incredible, massive energy to practice every weekend.
We are all built so very differently, which is absolutely fine. This is exactly why a truly positive lifestyle must be highly personal and completely sustainable. You cannot just blindly copy someone else's daily routine and expect magical, perfect results.
You just used another fantastic vocabulary word for our listeners today. Let us carefully explain the word sustainable. Sustainable means something that you can easily continue doing for a very long period of time without becoming totally exhausted or broken.
Exactly. Here is a very practical example of something that is definitely not sustainable. Eating only raw green vegetables and drinking sour lemon water for 3 weeks to lose weight quickly. You will feel terribly hungry and extremely angry constantly.
That sounds like absolute pure torture to me. Here is a great example of a truly sustainable habit. Instead of reading 50 difficult pages every single night, you decide to read just 5 short pages before slowly falling peacefully asleep.
Those 5 small pages will easily add up to several completed, wonderful books by the very end of 2026. That is the beautiful magic of building sustainable, healthy habits over time, rather than relying on extreme, temporary bursts of energy.
Let me share a highly personal, deeply embarrassing story about trying to build a completely unsustainable habit. A few years ago, I suddenly decided I wanted to become a professional morning yoga instructor, even though I was completely stiff.
I can already see exactly where this funny story is going right now. Please tell me you did not immediately buy $500 worth of professional, tight yoga clothing before even attending your very first beginner class in town.
Of course, I did exactly that. I enthusiastically bought the most expensive, colorful yoga mats. Then I nervously attended an advanced, extremely hot yoga class that lasted for 2 entire hours. I literally thought I was gonna pass out.
Oh my goodness, that sounds like an absolute terrifying nightmare. You definitely jumped straight into the deep end of the swimming pool without knowing how to swim at all. Did you ever return to that horribly hot, difficult studio?
Absolutely not. Never again. I quickly gave all of my expensive, brightly colored yoga equipment to my surprisingly flexible next door neighbor. I realized that trying to become an advanced professional in one single day was completely ridiculous and not sustainable.
That is such a perfectly classic example of what definitely not to do in 2026. We have to treat ourselves with much more gentle kindness and quiet patience when we are learning brand new skills or trying to drastically improve.
Speaking of being gentle and incredibly kind to ourselves, another huge part of a positive lifestyle is learning how to effectively manage our daily stress. Modern city life is incredibly busy, and heavy stress can easily destroy our most ambitious plans.
That is so incredibly true and important to remember. Whenever I feel deeply stressed about my large pile of unfinished office work, my brain completely freezes. I end up doing absolutely nothing but nervously staring out the living room window.
My personal reaction to intense daily stress is quite different from yours. When I am stressed, I nervously eat massive amounts of crunchy potato chips while frantically cleaning my entire apartment from top to bottom until my hands actually hurt.
Well, at least your apartment gets completely, perfectly spotless when you are feeling very anxious. But we definitely need to develop much healthier coping mechanisms for the difficult challenges that 2026 will inevitably throw directly into our current daily paths.
Speaking of managing stress, we also need to talk about properly rewarding ourselves when we actually achieve those difficult milestones. Celebrating our small victories is a fantastic way to maintain that precious daily motivation we discussed much earlier in the podcast.
That is a very interesting point. I absolutely love rewarding myself with a huge, incredibly expensive dinner at a fancy Italian restaurant whenever I finally finish a really massive, boring project at my busy corporate office. It feels so totally satisfying.
But wait, does that not completely ruin your strict financial budget for the month? If you spend $200 on a single fancy meal every time you finish a regular task, you will be completely broke by the middle of the sunny summer.
We are definitely arguing again. But honestly, the expensive reward is what gives me the raw energy to finish the terrible task. Let us quickly explain the useful word incentive, since we are talking about rewarding our hard work right now.
An incentive is something that strongly encourages or actively motivates a person to do something specific. It is exactly like a tasty, sweet carrot hanging from a long stick right in front of a tired, lazy horse to make it walk forward quickly.
What a perfectly funny and accurate image. Here is a very practical modern example. A company might offer its busy employees a massive financial bonus at the end of the year as a powerful incentive to work much harder and sell more expensive products.
Here is another highly detailed example of an incentive. Imagine you are carefully teaching your young, energetic dog how to sit quietly. You use small pieces of delicious, salty cheese as a strong incentive, so the dog actively wants to listen to your difficult commands.
Now, I am suddenly feeling incredibly hungry for some salty cheese and expensive Italian food. But I do understand your logical point about not spending too much money. Maybe my 2026 rewards should be totally free, like taking a long, relaxing bubble bath.
A hot, relaxing bubble bath with quiet music is a much more sustainable and intelligent incentive than spending all your hard-earned money. It is all about finding healthy, simple joys that do not accidentally create brand new, stressful financial problems for your future self.
You are entirely correct, as usual. We must actively seek balance in absolutely everything we do. Building a positive, healthy lifestyle for 2026 is like slowly building a beautiful, sturdy brick house. You cannot rush the process, or the heavy walls will eventually collapse entirely.
That is a beautiful metaphor to slowly wrap up our long, exciting conversation today. We have covered so many incredibly valuable strategies and learned some highly useful English vocabulary words together. I feel totally inspired to start planning my new year right now.
I feel exactly the same way. Before we completely finish, let us briefly summarize everything. We discussed building strong discipline instead of relying on temporary motivation, breaking massive dreams into manageable milestones, and preparing mentally for unexpected setbacks with a good sense of humor.
We also talked about finding a reliable accountability partner to keep us focused, avoiding completely unsustainable extreme habits, developing healthy routines for daily stress, and using smart, simple incentives to constantly reward our hard work without spending too much of our precious money.
Absolutely. We really want to thank all of our amazing, dedicated listeners from all around the world for joining us today. Building a positive, successful lifestyle takes a lot of time and patience, but practicing your English with us is a fantastic, strong start.
It really is. Remember, if you enjoyed this fun conversation today, please subscribe to the English Lab podcast on your favorite listening platform. We release brand new, highly educational episodes every single week to help you master real, natural English confidently and quickly.
And do not forget to leave us a glowing 5-star review if you learned some valuable new vocabulary words today. It really helps our small educational show reach many more motivated English learners who want to significantly improve their speaking skills and confidence.
Thank you again for spending your precious time with us. Keep practicing your English daily. Keep pushing towards those big 2026 goals. And always remember to stay incredibly positive even when things get very difficult. Have a truly wonderful week, everyone.
See you all next time on the English Lab podcast. Goodbye and good luck with your amazing 2026 journey.